Hey everybody, Dan Turbyville here, and welcome to another episode of Powerhouse Fence Show. I was very distracted when the show started. Sorry about that.
Bad.
I know. So we're sponsored, or this show is presented by Memphis Fence Company, MFC Manufacturing, Simpalo, and the Thornton Fence Consulting Group. If you want some help increasing your efficiency and profitability, give the Thornton Fence Consulting Group a call. The link we have, Ilaria, we have the links to the events in the description.
Yes.
All right, so we should have the Jackpot Trade Show link, the Thornton Fence Consulting Group events, and Fence Tech 2025. Sound right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. We are live. There is a phone number scrolling on the bottom of the screen in case anyone ever wants to call in.
One day.
One of these days. I think we've had like 2 people call and we're on season 3. We don't even have one per season, Ilaria.
Oh my goodness.
I know. So everybody, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate everybody that listens to the show. It's cool to get some feedback. So if you do listen and you do have questions or comments or anything, let us know. And thanks for stopping by and hanging out with us. So I've been listening to a book because I'm not very good at reading books, but I do listen to them whenever I'm driving to and from work and around town doing whatever. And so I've been listening to a book called Good to Great by Jim Collins. And if you've never listened to it, I would definitely recommend it. It's very interesting. I don't know, probably 2 or 3 times on my morning commute, I'll pause it and text something to my wife. And like, I just text her these little quotes and, little one-liner kind of stuff out of the book. It's fascinating me. It's my first time ever reading this one. I know it's been around a while, but I think it's good stuff. So we mentioned FinTech 2025. We're going. I think. Did you show up to the meeting today?
No, but I figure we didn't have much to say.
I think somebody. I got a notification that somebody had joined the meeting on Teams.
Oh yeah, because Alyssa and I got a notification saying that someone had joined the meeting, so we also went in. But it was your AI.
Oh, sorry. So that deadgum AI. We are working on gathering up stuff. We've been ordering things and going through that whole process. If you've never exhibited at a trade show, it is a process.
It's a lot.
Yeah. And I mean, we don't do any of the fancy stuff. You see people that have all the things hanging from the ceilings and have the big structures built and all kinds of samples. And I mean, man, I can't imagine trying to do something like that. But I mean, just for the little stuff that we do, it's a lot of work that goes into those things. So the local AFA chapter, Memphis Tri-State Fence Association, has their postponed Christmas dinner coming up, I guess, Saturday night. Yeah. So I think it's too late for anyone to actually register for the dinner, but it is at the butcher shop this Saturday. So.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. I guess they can't stop you from stopping by and saying hello. So if you're in the area and you feel like swinging by, I have no idea what time it is. I should have prepared enough for that, but anyways. So the Simpalo story of the week. I met with the developers today, and I do this thing where I'm like, hey, I have this idea. Why don't we do this? And it's like, it just pops in my head and instantly it needs to happen right now, if that makes any sense. And I don't mean like unrealistically needs to happen right now, but it'll just pop into my head and I'm like, nope, that's a great idea. Let's do it. Let's go. And, I just try to start the wheels turning as soon as possible and get excited about things and, let's do it. That's kind of what happened today. Whenever I met with the developer, I was like, hey, I got an idea. What if we did this? And he's like, oh, okay. And I said, well, that's too easy. Like, if it was that simple, why didn't we do it already? But anyways, so yeah, there's some exciting stuff coming out there. I'm excited about it, and I will share it with you, and hopefully you will be just as excited as me. Something kind of funny. It's funny to me. I put it in Teams today and nobody else laughed at it, but someone like one of these sales folks that cold call and cold email and things like that, they sent an email to Simpala today and said, have you ever considered having man, I should learn how to talk if I'm going to keep doing this, right? Have you ever considered having custom software developed for your company? It can be a great, asset for your business. Call us and we can help you develop custom software. I was like, man, these people, they just don't do any homework. I think they just get an email address and send whatever to everyone. Because, Simpalo is a software company that is built on software that it had custom built. So anyways, all right. I'm going to give you all a minute to stop laughing and then I'll carry on. So I got something pretty cool. We got our new fence signs that are going to go on to our temporary fence. So yeah. Shout out to JC Gurry for getting these things done and getting them sent over to us. I'm excited to see what they look like out there. They are reflective and they're pretty big. So anyone who's listening to this later, they're like I think they're an 8x12 or something like that. They're pretty good size. So I'm excited about those. I think it's going to be awesome. And hopefully we can get them installed on some temporary fence and maybe post some pictures of them wherever we do that. Yeah. All right. So today I thought we would kind of go over the bidding process for when we're bidding a job to general contractors. I know for anyone who's listened to this show, I guess consistently, you've probably heard a lot of this stuff before, but if you have, sorry. If you haven't, then good. Here we are. And I think, we periodically change things. And so maybe this will be presented a little different, or maybe it'll be something new in here that you haven't heard before. So here we go. Everybody ready? Yeah. So step number 1 right out of the gate is going to blow your mind. Oh, I need to periodically take a drink break because it's really hard when I'm by myself to just sit here and talk and talk and talk and talk. And I always come down here with something in a cup and I never stop long enough to actually drink it. So here we go. Ilaria, cue some sound effects for drink break time. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
I got it.
So step number 1, we find a job to bid. I know that's earth shattering. So there's a few different ways that jobs come to us. I think we did a whole episode about this.
Yes.
But there's a few different ways that jobs come to us and we find jobs to bid. So we might get an email invitation to bid on a job from 1 or 2 or 10 different. Hey, what's up, Ison? 1 or 2 or 10 different general contractors, depending on the job and whatnot. But yeah, so we'll get bid invites by email. Sometimes they come through, different services, Construct Connect and places like that, but they'll all wind up in an email. So we have a shared email that we share among the people who bid on jobs to general contractors, and all of those bid invites get moved in there. They get sorted through, and we'll go through and put an Outlook. You can kind of put a flag on things to follow up with it, or you can put a check mark on it when it's done. And so once we've gone through the job and verified, yes, we're going to bid it, no, we're not, then we'll just put a little check mark. And a lot of times we can look at jobs pretty quickly and know if we're going to bid them or not. If it's a gas station that's bidding 6 hours or 8 hours away from us, they probably sent it to us because there's a dumpster gate on it or maybe some temporary fence. Neither of those make sense for us to try to bid 6 or 8 hours away. So we do that. And we go through them, and then, like I said, on Outlook, we'll either flag them for follow-up or we'll put a little check mark on them whenever we have done it. And so there's a few different ways that we've wound up on these bidders list, either by bidding jobs to these general contractors in the past, and they add us to their bidders list after we bid the job, or maybe we send an email or a letter to them, just kind of like an introductory deal, and say, hey, we exist. This is what we do. Can you add us to your bidders list, please? And that'll work And then, I mean, you might be able to call them and have that same conversation or something like that. We also go out and we actively look for jobs that are bidding. So we look on like local plan rooms that are here in Memphis and West Tennessee. We also have subscriptions to websites like Construct Connect that we'll go through and look on those. Those can get a little bit overwhelming. There's a lot of jobs on there. So it's not the place that I would start if I was looking to get into this. I would start with reaching out to some local contractors and maybe joining like a smaller, more regional plan room or something like that before just going out and diving into Construct Connect. And, you know, you open that and there's 15,000 jobs that you have access to, and it can be a little bit overwhelming. Another one that's overwhelming is sam.gov. And it can be overwhelming because of the number of jobs on there, but it also is just a pain in the butt. If you've ever sat and sorted through sam.gov and tried to figure out what jobs you want to bid on, and then you go back to the next day and you get the same list that maybe has had a few jobs added to it, and there's really not any way to know what jobs you've looked at and what jobs you've not looked at, and it's just kind of complicated. So it is possible, definitely doable, but it's a little bit of a process to learn that website too. Also, jobs might come to us because or through relationships that we've built with people. Either we've done previous jobs for them, or maybe they're also members of some local contractors associations or something like that. You never know, right? You might be the person behind you in line at the grocery store that you're going to spark up a conversation with, and it'll later turn into them inviting you to bid on jobs, things like that. But yeah, sometimes jobs might even come to us from another fence company, right? If someone asks another fence company to bid on a job and it's not really what they normally do, or maybe they know that somebody else would be better suited for it, or I think the one that happens to me personally most frequently is that other people just know I'm dumb enough to bid on things. And so it'll be like some really crazy job that's 100 feet in the air and you've got to walk on a tightrope to put a fence in. And those jobs seem to find their way to us. That's me being a little bit dramatic and exaggerating.
That's also what you want, right?
Oh, yeah, I love that. I love the complicated jobs. I love the ones that take me like 3 days of just, doing nothing but staring at the set of plans to really come up with a good game plan on how to even do the job. That's where I love it. So Isaac says state, city, county, municipalities, water districts, things like that. Yeah. So you can go on a lot of the maybe different states, counties, cities, things like that. Also DOT websites. You can go on there and so for us, Tennessee DOT, they have stuff on their website where jobs are posted. You can go to a lot of different government type websites, and they have all their job postings on there. Have we ever done any jobs in confined spaces? You mean like in a mine shaft kind of confined space? I know I've heard this term confined spaces in like the safety world, but to be honest with you, I don't exactly know the definition of it. Oh, Isaac put a comment on here and asked if we ever did any jobs in confined spaces. That's what I was talking about. Like an elevator shaft? Not that I'm aware of. I feel like we maybe have done some around like the base of an elevator or something like that. But none of them really just like come to mind, if that makes sense. So couldn't really speak intelligently about it, but maybe there's something. And this camera is right in the way of me seeing the comments that people are putting on here. Hey, what's up, Seth? Thanks for stopping by. The jobs that just need to get done are good ones. Yeah, I agree. But anyways, my brother gets mad at me all the time for saying anyways. He says I need to take the S off of it. So I've been trying. I apologize, everyone. Yeah. So once we get the job, obviously the next thing we are going to do is look at it. And we go through this process and we decide, is this a job that we actually want to bid? And is it a job that we could realistically do? Right. So those are kind of the two questions that we have to answer here. And so we kind of look at like the type of work, the location of the job, the size of the job, things like that. Like I mentioned earlier, the dumpster gate that's 6 hours away doesn't make any sense for us to try to bid on that thing. Um, so normally those are jobs that we do not bid. Um, Also, if you see a job that a lot of times you'll get, not always, sometimes I guess I could say, you'll get kind of like a preliminary schedule at the beginning of the job, or the job may have a time frame that just tells you how many days. So it'll give you like a window, right? And there may be several pieces to that window for like finalizing a design or procurement or something like that. But there's always a if there is several, there will be a day period. I'm struggling, man. I'm struggling. There will be a number of days on there that tell you how long you have to complete the job, right? And depending on what the scope of work is, if they're building a whole facility and it's got all new dirt work that has to be done and new asphalt and everything, like, you can't show up on day one and start putting in fence, right? Well, if you're doing temporary, but I mean, if you're doing some kind of complex permanent fence that's going to be installed towards the end of the job, then like we kind of have to look at that realistically. So we kind of go through all of those things and make sure that it's actually a job, which it's a little bit later when we would get into some of those weeds, but we'd look at insurance requirements on it. That's not really something that's going to probably make me not bid a job, but it's something that I want to make sure I'm aware of whenever I am bidding the job. If we have to have special insurance coverages or things like that, then I want to make sure I know about it. Um, Something that I've ran into a few times in the past that is a significant cost in the insurance world. It's called USL&H. I think it's like longshoreman and harbor master insurance, and I believe it's a type of workers' comp. I don't believe that it is a type of workers' comp. I believe the requirement for having to have this USL&H insurance is if the job is being done over a navigable body of water. And from what I understand, that's a very gray area term. I'm not an insurance expert, right? So all I can do is regurgitate what I remember from insurance professionals. But yeah, they kind of explained to me that like there's not really a clearly defined like threshold for the size of the body of water or the size of the river or anything like that you're working over. So it gets a little bit messy sometimes, but that's one that I mean, we've bid jobs before where it's over a body of water that's obviously would be fit into the category where it is a navigable body of water. And so I've talked to general contractors and they're like, "Oh, what is that?" Right. And so I don't know what to make of that kind of stuff. We we declined signing a contract for somebody back a couple months ago because of insurance, and it was because it was like a little $5,000 or $6,000 temporary fence job, and if we had bought the insurance that was required for the job, it was going to cost us like 3,000. We didn't find out about the insurance until they sent us a contract. There was nothing before that mentioned this insurance requirement, and it happens like that sometimes. And so I just told him, I was like, man, I'm not signing that thing. I'm not providing the insurance that's required. And it was a big to do. We went back and forth for several days. And they said, oh, well, most of the subs that work for us just send us an insurance certificate once a year. And I said, well, I hate to tell you, but if they're just sending it to you once a year, they're not providing the coverage that you require. It has to be job specific. And anyways, we went back and forth a few days. And long story short, we didn't do the job, wouldn't sign the contract. They wouldn't change the contract. I honestly don't think that they really understood what they were asking for. My insurance agent talked to their insurance agent, kind of went back and forth, and it was a big mess. But anyway, insurance is a thing, right? And sometimes insurance requirements are crazy. So if you go and you look at a job that says you got to have a $10 million general liability policy and you can't use an umbrella for it, that's some pretty big insurance requirements on there. and you would have to change your entire insurance policy for the year, right? You can't just buy that coverage for that one job. So yeah, insurance requirements are a thing. Safety requirements. So Isaac asked about the confined spaces stuff. There's a lot of situations where we're working at different heights. Some general contractors really go to town on safety requirements, and I'm all about everybody going home tonight. But I think you also can like overcomplicate that world some. And I mean, man, some of them will have requirements in there about like the knife that you're allowed to use to cut open a box, right? It's got to be a self-retracting box cutter is the only type of blade you're allowed to have. You can't bring a pocket knife on the job. So, stuff like that. I mean, it's not a huge deal to go out and buy a few box cutters, but if you're working on a bridge and you have to have these specific type of yo-yos, the like self-retracting steel cable, yo-yos that you would anchor somewhere and then you pull over to yourself and anchor to you, uh, those can get pretty expensive. And then if you have to have the ones that go on your back that are like that, those are expensive. So we did a job on a bridge one time, and they had all of these requirements about different, fall prevention stuff, and every tool that we had to be tied off. So if you had a pair of fence pliers to do the job, it had to be tied off. If you had a hard hat on, it had to be tied off. And so I think we wound up spending like $10,000 or $12,000 on all the safety equipment to do that job, which we still have it and we can use it again. But it was, I'm pretty sure the person that worked on bidding that job did not include any of that in there. And so again, safety requirements are important to look at. I already kind of mentioned that, like this, can we do the job in the time, or to the quality that the customer deserves? So I like to be realistic about this because it's really easy to go down that path of just like getting excited about bidding this big job, right? Or this high profile job, or this job on this really cool property, or, this new development, or whatever that is, right? You can get excited about bidding a job and just wanting to be a part of some project. But it also, it's kind of hard to just stop and be realistic about that and say, no, I don't think we actually can do the job. And, it's even harder to go back to someone who asked you for a price on it and say, look, we looked at it. It's not a good fit for us. Sorry, you're going to have to find somebody else. It sucks, but I do think it's important. And I think people respect that, right? I wouldn't call them 20 minutes before the job bids and try to tell them you can't do it like that. They're probably going to get a little bit upset about that. But I think if you do it within a few days of getting invited to a job, or, them calling and requesting you bid on a job, something like that, if you do it in a timely fashion, then I think people are understanding. And I think they appreciate and they are respectful of the fact that you're honest enough with them to say you can't do the job. Yeah, so we already mentioned here a few times that we've declined to bid jobs. We've declined to sign contracts. The one I mentioned earlier wasn't a big deal. When you get a $300,000 or $400,000 contract in front of you and you tell them no, then that's when things get a little bit different. One job that specifically comes to mind, and I know we've talked about it here on the show before, but it was I think it was like I said, $300,000 or $400,000, and I'd sent them this big kind of like, hey, I just wrote out a piece of paper, right? So I basically sent them a letter that went with my proposal, and it just kind of went through and was like, hey, you asked for this, here's what we could deliver. You asked for this, here's what we could deliver. And, I kind of just went through those things, and I told them like, hey, we would require this much room in your parking lots. We have to be within so many feet of the area that we're working. This particular facility had a lot of different parking lots, and they had fence going here, there, and yonder over their whole property. And so, we needed to be somewhere within a reasonable distance of where the fence was going to be installed. We didn't want to be half a mile away and trying to drag, welders or welding leads and material and stuff like that from the truck. But yeah, so they sent a contract for it. And I said, well, did you read the document that I included with my proposal? And do you agree with everything that was in there? And they said, "Oh no, let me look at it." And they're like, "Oh, well, we can't really do this and this." And I was like, "Well, I mean, if you want us to do the job, like this is how we could do the job. And if it can't be done that way, then I understand, but we're probably not the person for you." And so they took their contract and they went somewhere else. And it's no fun, but it does happen. So, um, another thing is, can we actually bid the job in time? If somebody calls and they say, "Hey, I've got a job that I'm looking at and I need a price back by the end of business tomorrow or by Monday morning," or something like that. I try to be realistic and try to be honest with people and just let them know, can we do this? Can we actually even bid the job in that time frame? Hey, Ilaria, you got some drinking music for us?
Yes, I got it.
Okay, let's see what we got. I almost I had to hold myself back from laughing so I didn't spew my tea there.
I'm glad. I work hard.
Yeah, thank you. So, can we bid the job in time? Like I said, you get these last minute requests. Some jobs are easy, right? And so, kind of my first thing is, okay, can I see the job so that I know what it is and I kind of get an idea for how long it's going to take me to bid it? Some of them are easy. Some of them you might have to wait a week or two to get material prices back, and you might have to, ship material and equipment and things like that around the country to kind of get to the job site, right? So a lot of times there's logistics involved aside from just going to the supply house, picking up material and going out and doing it, or the material showing up on your yard. Like sometimes you get in situations where it's a lot more complicated, and those again, I just try to be realistic. What do you have scheduled for the next few days? If someone asks me for a price by the end of the business tomorrow and I know I'm not going to be here tomorrow, then hey, I appreciate you asking, but unfortunately, I'm not going to be available tomorrow. And, our other folks are tied up working on other projects, like whatever the situation may be. I just try to, like I said, be honest. And a phrase that I like is manage expectations, right? I think that's really good. And a lot of times I think about that is trying to manage the expectations. So I think that starts with your first look at the job. Um, and yeah, so the other day we were shut down. So last Thursday, the reason we were not live was we had some winter weather that was coming in, and people were saying it was going to start by 6 o'clock. And, knowing my luck, it would be like the largest blizzard that Memphis has ever seen. And we'd get 4 foot of snow, and I'd be trying to get home and get stuck somewhere and all this stuff. But, anyways, um, so, and wouldn't you know it, somebody sent me an email Friday morning and was like, "Hey, I got this job I need you to bid and I need it by Monday." And I said, okay, well, fortunately in today's world, like we make use of enough technologies. We use Microsoft Suite, cloud storage stuff. Simpalo obviously is one of them. And so I was able to just hop on my laptop at home and pull the job up, do a takeoff, and send it off to our supplier. And that's great. But I mean, if I did not have that technology in place, then I would have needed to respond to the guy and be like, "Hey, we're shut down. I don't know when I'm going to be back to work, and I don't know if I can get this to you." So there you go. That's kind of our like preliminary stuff that we do before we ever really like seriously start working on the job. Hopefully, hopefully some of that was worth listening to. Thank you. We need some like, where's our commercial breaks? I joined like one or two groups on Facebook that are podcasters and YouTubers and things like that. And I saw somebody the other day talking about how, well, these people were talking about like charging for commercial slots and stuff like that during their show. And I was like, man, that's a brilliant idea. That would actually give me time to like take a drink or to take a breath or, just to kind of like stop talking for a second. But all right, so let's go on. Step number 3, we do the takeoff, right? So now, first of all, I have right here in big bold letters, take your time and familiarize yourself with the job. We've already kind of touched on some of this stuff a little bit, but The amount of time it's going to take you to familiarize yourself with that job is going to depend on your experience level a lot of times, or the complexity of the job. It might be something pretty quick that you could do in 20 minutes, and it might be something that, again, is going to take you a few days to really dig into it. Uh, yeah, so I like to, kind of look through the plans and know the whole scope of the job, and really, like, at least the stuff that we're going to touch. I don't really care to go look and see what color they're going to paint the walls inside the building, but I like to know about the stuff that we're going to touch. And I really I try to find, like, the potential issues that would come up during the job. There's different opinions on how to handle this stuff, right? But for me, I can't just go in there and bid it the way it's drawn and then say, we'll give them a change order later. I That's the kind of stuff that would keep me up at night, and it cost us jobs. I mean, being realistic with the time frame and the insurance requirements, and doing all those things, it cost us jobs, and I'm okay with that, because I like to go home and I like to sleep peacefully at the end of the day. So yeah, I'll look for potential problems. Right? Is there spots that we're going to have to core drill? Because, I mean, a lot of times if you've got a plan set, you can see where the concrete is going to be. And then, are there a lot of grade changes on the job? That's one that it honestly took me a while to understand, that I needed to look at some sort of grading plan whenever I was going through drawings. So now I try to make it a habit of looking at the grading plan, trying to get an idea for, how much up and down elevation there is, right? How many terminal posts I'm going to have to add. We've been burned. We did a job that was about 3 or 4 hours away, and we had to buy like an extra 25 terminal posts on the job because it was pretty hilly. And I never looked at the, any kind of grading plans when I bid the job or any of that. I did this one, and so it's 100% on me. Like I said, had something like an extra 20 or 25 terminal post, and so throw an extra 50 hookups in there with that, and that takes a bit of time that you didn't plan on doing, but that's the way it goes sometimes. We always try to do our best, but I also understand that I'm a human and other people are humans, and sometimes we're just not going to get it perfect. So I try to, I'll also, not always, but if I look at a job and I'm like, man, why is there no gate automation on these gates? Then I might go to the flip over to the electric plan and look on there and just see, is there power ran to the gates for gate automation that's just not shown anywhere? And a lot of this stuff, like, you'll have to submit questions. What is?
Are you okay?
I don't know what's going on. A lot of this stuff you might have to submit questions, and you can't really do that if you wait till the last minute, right? So when I say take your time, just start working on the thing a little bit ahead of time too. Like, don't wait until the night before. And sometimes it works out for you, sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, so I'll look at the electric drawing and kind of see, is there power ran to the gate, right? And then if there is power ran to the gate and there's no gate automation, I'm probably going to try to send an email to somebody and say, hey, here's what's going on. What do you want me to do? And if they don't respond, I just put another line item on there, right? And I'll only just include whatever we use for our standard gate automation on that type of gate. I'll just include that little package on there and say, hey, I noticed there was power ran out there, but no automation was shown. So here's a line item if you do want automation on that gate. So I try to do some of that a la carte stuff if there's questions. Value engineered alternates are always a good idea. I didn't actually put that on here, but they just popped in my mind. So they're always a good idea to throw out there. If you got a job that's bid or spec some kind of crazy way, then I'll just by default give them a value engineered alternate and give them something that serves the purpose that they want, but could save them a decent bit of money. So yeah, we go through all of that stuff, right? And it's important to look through all the specs and all the other documents that are included with the job, so you can see insurance requirements. You can find a sample contract. So if you wanted to skim through some of the terms and conditions in there, does the material have to be domestic? Is there a prevailing wage or a wage scale or whatever you want to call it on this job? What's the schedule and the safety requirements? And you can kind of get through a lot of that stuff, and it doesn't take very long. Once you figure out where it is that you need to look in the specs, I mean, you can flip through and 5 or 10 minutes, and you can check off all those things from your list and make sure that you understand kind of some of the um, contract requirements, admin requirements, something like that you want to say. So now we've done all of that, right? And we haven't even really made any progress. So next thing we're going to do is we're just going to go through and measure all the plans. And we're going to prepare a material list based on the measurements that we take. So once again, I'm going to take my time and try to make sure I cover everything. And what I like to do is I like to think through the actual installation process while I'm going along. So again, kind of going back to the core drill part, right? If I look at a job and I see that there's a fence going across concrete, what are we going to do? We're going to core drill, we're going to plate it, we got to do something. I mentioned earlier a job that we had bid, and I gave him like a letter that went with it. And it was, this is how close we need to be able to park, right? This is how we need to have access to the site. This is like our hours that you would expect us to be on site, things like that. And I'll kind of think through that process as I'm going along. And also a very common one that I run into a lot is, will the job be ready all at one time? So I worked on a job today, and it was a sports complex, had, a bunch of different types of fence here and there and all over the place. And there was fence underneath bleachers and all this stuff. And I thought, I doubt this whole thing's going to be ready. And so I kind of thought about like the phasing and how I anticipate that we would be able to do the job. So again, just kind of thinking through the process. So we use Simpalo for this part of it. We upload our plans in there. We have some search tools that we use to go through the plans and find the pages that have fence on them. Then we draw out our fence lines, we set the specs, and then there's our material list. And we take those and we send them off to our suppliers. And so we might send it to 3 different suppliers. I think it's really important to have relationships with vendors. They're a part of the team. And I think a lot of the time we just kind of overlook them, right? But it's important to have those relationships in place, and just to be able to call them and kind of talk to them without it being super awkward. So yeah, so we'll send it out to a few suppliers. And if you're a supplier, don't be offended by what I'm going to say. This is my experience in my little world, right? So we send a material list off that I believe to be fairly descriptive, and it has most of the specs and things like that kind of lined out on there with exactly what we're looking for. And we get material lists back, and we have to go through line by line, because they're going to be a decent bit of the time they're going to be wrong, right? And so if we send it off to a few suppliers, then hopefully we'll get one back that's right that we can use to bid the job. If not, we kind of have to do that back and forth thing with them and say, no, this needs to be changed to this, and that needs to be changed to that. So there's a lot of people out there that just send like a layout to their suppliers. I'd be curious to know how, if you do that, do you run into problems with the material list? Or, when you order material, is it the right material? Do you have enough to finish the job? Do you have too much, right? Do you have a lot of stuff left over? Like, how does that work out for you? Because if we're sending these descriptive material lists to suppliers and we get it back, and sometimes they're wrong. I think I said a decent bit earlier. Sometimes they're wrong, right? I don't want to sound like people are just bad, right? Because they're not. They're good. I'm really... I have a similar approach to several things in life, and the supplier situation is one of them. I find the person that does a good job, and so John says wrong every time. So I like to try to find the person that does a good job, and I don't really care what name is on the side of the building, right? I don't care where their paycheck comes from. If they do a good job and they're a person that we can have a working relationship, and they will spend enough time to make sure the material lists are correct and the specs are correct and all of that stuff, then that's the person that we want to work with. So we don't go for, what company, who cares, right? It's the person, it's the sales rep for the most part. And yeah, that's a whole conversation, right? But That's kind of my general thing is like, I'm going to try to find the sales rep. All right. So we sent the material off and we sent it to hopefully 2 or 3 different people so that we can, do the best job we can serving our customers and make sure that we get the most competitive price there is on our material, and also increases our odds of selling the job, right? If we can find material that's a little bit cheaper and still meets all the specs, then we have a little bit better odds of selling the job. Thank you.
Of course.
All right. So now we have a material list back. And so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to complete the price. So I personally like to use a cost of goods sold times some multiplier, depending on what the margin is. And that's going to equal our sales price. Now, I use an Excel spreadsheet to do it. I have, I don't know, over the course of probably 12 years or something like that, I've worked on adding and I would never say perfecting, but improving. There we go. Improving one Excel spreadsheet that I've used for a long time. And I just keep tweaking on it a little bit. And that's what I use to add my margins and put all of my cost and everything in there. And that's where my sales price comes from. So John says, how can we get Simpolo? If you want, you can send us a message.
Yes.
Right. So if you go on social media, you can go to Simpolo and send a message on there. I think actually on the Facebook page, isn't the demo link pinned at the top?
Yes.
Yeah. So John, if you want to schedule a demo, you can go to the Simpolo Facebook page and there should be a pinned post there for scheduling a demo with me. You can look me up on Facebook, Dan Turbyville.
Or you can leave us your email in the comments here. We're going to reach back out to you.
Man, look at Ilaria. You can, there you go. You can give us your email and we'll reach out to you. Good job. So whatever works for you. There's a phone number at the bottom of the screen right now, 901-878-4987. That is the Simpolo phone number. So if you want to give me a shout on there later on tomorrow or something like that, we can talk about it too. There you go, Ilaria. You see that email address?
Awesome. I'll take care of that.
All right. That was, man, I feel like we just fumbled right on through how to do that. Thanks for giving us the right answer, Ilaria.
Of course.
Thank you, John. We'll talk soon. So I used to use, back to my Excel spreadsheet that I used to bid jobs. I used to use some crazy convoluted calculations that I don't even know how I came up with it, but I just sat there for hours fiddling with the different calculations and finally got something that worked. And the funny thing is, I would then do another calculation to see what the margin was. And so I was listening to the Contractor Fight podcast one day, and I heard this guy talk about how he figures up his cost of goods sold and multiplies it by 2. And I said, wait a minute. And so it really just blew my mind, right? And so I then started working on implementing that whole theory, and it's been really good, and I'm super happy that I heard him say that. So it's a really simple thing, and I felt really dumb for having never realized that it was that simple. But sometimes that's just what it takes for you to see the thing right in front of you, I guess. But all right, so we're working on doing our price, right? So again, take your time, right? I don't know how many times I put that in here, but I'm just going to keep saying it every time. Take your time. And, I like to think through the process of how we're going to do the job. Do we have to pay somebody to haul gates out there, right? Do we have some big 40, 50, 60 foot, 80 foot, however long a gate it would take for you to have to pay somebody? Are they on the job? Are we going to have to pay for hotel rooms and meals? And do we have that travel expense of driving, 6, 8, 10, 12 hours away? And, just kind of think through that whole thing. And then again, think through the installation process, right? Are we going to have to park 3,000 feet away from the job? Man, we did a job. Oh, I have nightmares about this thing still. It was some right-of-way fence we did, and then we did like 55,000 feet of it or something like that. And it was all through, not all, but a lot of it was through these like swampy areas, and it was a nightmare. And so you couldn't, and they had this big like sound barrier wall that the fence was going behind. Yeah, they have like a, I don't know, 16 or 18-foot tall concrete wall, and they still made us put our 6-foot chain link fence behind it. But, anyways, so there I go again with my anyways. So we would have to go to the end of the wall and travel along this grade all the way behind the wall to get to where the fence was being installed. And it was super swampy, and stuff was getting stuck left and right. And you couldn't go out there with your boots on because they'd get stuck off in the swamp. And so I had to buy a mini excavator, and we had to build a sled to go behind the mini excavator. And so you could take the mini X out there, put the material on the sled, track it along behind the wall, and then you could sit it off with the mini X where it needed to go to kind of stage it. And then when your skid steers and everything else were getting stuck, you had your mini X there to pull them out. And I mean, we were just parking our trucks on the side of the interstate, and they were like, we were thousands of feet away from the truck, and hoping that nobody messed with them and that we didn't forget to get our pliers off the truck and all of that stuff. It was a mess. So that's the things that you want to kind of think through, right? Is, wait a minute, they're building a giant wall there. We're not going to be able to park our truck beside where we're working. So we're going to be way away from it. Stuff like that. Hey, I need some music.
Need some crickets.
If that's what you want, that's good with me. All right. So now we've gone through all of that stuff, right? I've come up with how much labor I think it's going to take, how many days we're going to spend, how many crews we're going to have, all of this, and what other cost we're going to have with the job, right? All our core drilling and any cost associated with doing gate automation and safety training, right? I actually skipped over this before, but any kind of like safety training and background checks and drug checks and all of these things that are required to do some of these jobs, I want to make sure that I include all of that cost. Sometimes you have to buy these super snazzy side impact hard hats that might cost you $100 a piece to buy them, and you got to have them for all your folks to work on these jobs, right? Sometimes you got to have cut resistant gloves and sleeves and everything else. So again, just kind of think through all of that stuff. It's important to look at the safety requirements and the insurance requirements and understand, are we doing drug tests? Are we doing background checks? Do we have a 2-day safety orientation they're going to make us go through before we can start work on this project? And that happens both in like our general contractor world and the business to business world. Sometimes with these bigger corporations and, maybe depending on the nature of their business, they may be very safety conscious, and we may have to go through a bunch of orientations and stuff like that. Okay, so we've completed the price, right? We have a price that we want to send to our customer, and we're super excited about it. And we've done it in time. We've thought through the whole project. We know what it's going to take to do the job. So now we just prepare a proposal. Prepare a proposal. And sometimes at night when I read books, we try to read books to our kids. And sometimes at night, whenever I'm trying to read through these little books with all these rhymes and everything in it, man, I get so tongue-tied sometimes. There's one, it's called The Wonky Donkey. And if you have children and you've never experienced that one, I encourage you to check it out. It's fun. But anyway, so I'm going to make my proposal. So on the proposal, I'm going to have, normal standard stuff. I've got a letterhead at the top. I've got the date. I've got things like that. And then I put on there the scope of work. So this is what all we included. And I try to be fairly descriptive about that. I feel like I talk a lot about being really descriptive and thinking things through and all of that. And I want to just take a minute, and it does not take us a week to bid a single job, right? We don't spend 40 hours working on bidding a job, but so, I mean, as you get better and more experienced and have done it multiple times, then you get to a point where you can do all this stuff fairly quickly. So, it's not like we're spending 40 hours sitting here sifting through every single sheet and reading every word and all of that kind of stuff. So I don't want to sound like it's more complicated than it is, right? But yeah, so my proposal has a scope of work, it has a price. I put exclusions on there again because I've spent a little time and I've thought about how we're going to do the job. So I'm going to put exclusions on there. Any other kind of notes, right? So if there's some stuff that I'm not really sure about and I made some assumptions along the way, because that happens too. Sometimes you're going to make assumptions. Uh, in fact, it's fairly common, I would say, that, we might look at a set of plans, we're looking at a job, and we run across something that we don't understand, and we say, hey, Mr. Miss, whatever general contractor, we have these questions. And it's fairly common that you just don't even get a response at all, right? Where they might say, okay, I'll try to find out. And then you never hear anything else. So at that point, if you're going to bid the job, you're just making assumptions. You have to decide if you're comfortable enough with the assumptions that you're making to bid the job. Whoa.
Wow.
What was that?
That was a notification on the big computer.
Man, I was like all on a roll, Ilaria. Yeah, so you got to decide, are you comfortable enough with the assumptions that you're making to bid the job? Again, I know the whole excitement, the thrill of it, right? I'm bidding on this really awesome job. I'd love to get it. It would be the greatest thing of my life. And then you are like, wait a minute. I don't know if these posts are supposed to be, I don't know, 20 weight or 40 weight or 2 foot in the ground or 8 foot in the ground. And, you have to make these assumptions, right? So, but yeah, that's where I'll put some notes on there. And I try to basically what I want to do is if it comes up 6 months down the road when we have a contract and they're ready for us to come out on the job site, or, we have submittals that we're going back and forth about, or whatever it is, I want to be able to say, look, I told you on the front end, right? I'm not telling you now. I told you on the front end what we did, what we included, whatever the case may be. Like, I want to be able to tell them that I told them on the front end. So that's when I try to do it. Going back to managing expectations, right? I think that kind of fits into that same bucket. It's maybe not exactly that, but it's close enough. So I try to fit my proposal on one page. And sometimes that's really challenging. Sometimes it's just completely impossible. And sometimes it takes more than one. But I try to be concise enough that I fit it all onto one page if possible. And I took some classes way back when I first started in the, general contractor bidding world. And I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. And yeah, there was people here that knew, but I didn't, it wasn't like we had any super great training and stuff like that going on a lot of times. So I kind of just got thrown to the wolves a little bit. But yeah, so I was taking these classes and they were taught by a guy who was an estimator and had been a project manager, worked for general contractors for his entire career. And he told me that, man, this guy, he kind of like went on a little rant one day about how he gets these proposals and they're, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 pages long, all of this stuff. And he's like, no, I don't want all that. He said, I want a proposal that fits on one page. And he said, if you want to add any kind of fluff and, who you are, what you do, how great you are, whatever, put all of that behind that one page, right? Don't make me flip through all of that stuff to get to the price. And so I've always tried to go by that, right? That's always been my objective. I sent a price to somebody the other day. I sent them like drawings and pictures and stuff like that with it. But guess what? Page 1 of that proposal had the scope of work and it had the price at the bottom. So if they did not want to look any further than that, they didn't have to. I don't like doing that thing where you got to flip through all the stuff to get to something. And it probably is like some sales tactics in there, right? There's probably some theories behind why people do it that way. But again, I don't like to operate that way. I like to put the price right there on the front page. And if there's some more stuff, keep on looking, it's in there. But anyways, scope of work, price, exclusions, notes, and any kind of fluff, I say fluff, right? Pictures, drawings, information, whatever that is, like about your company, all of that just goes behind it. So now we're pretty much like at the end of the road with this thing, right? So now I'm just going to submit my proposal. I do it in email, and I like to do it before the due date. Okay. I don't want to send it 10 minutes before the job's bid or before the contractor has to turn in their price. I don't want to send it 10 minutes before, because then I think about them, right? If they're doing a job, they've got 20, 30, 50 trades involved in this job, and they get 3 prices from each one of them, and they all show up an hour before the job is due. Man, can you imagine trying to make heads or tails of all of that stuff that you got going on, and trying to make sure that everything on the project is actually covered and that you don't have overlapping scopes and you don't have holes between scopes? I mean, so me personally, I like to try to send it to them a little bit in advance. Maybe like, if it's due at noon, I might try to send it to them at 3 o'clock the day before, or, 4 o'clock the day before, at least give them a little bit of time to look at it. So that, and a lot of times people will ask you questions and kind of say, "Hey, did you see this? Did you see that? Is this included?" I like those kind of conversations when they happen, because at least they're interested in using our price. Doesn't mean they're going to hire us, but at least they're interested in it. Or maybe we're just the only one that sent it to them that early. I guess that could be it too. No crickets that time.
No, that one was funny.
Oh, okay. So anyway, I think that's about it, right? We've sent it, and now we just we follow up, we get a contract, we do the job, and we celebrate. Hooray!
Yay! Hold on.
Okay, well, yeah, there you go. All right, well, that's the end of the show. We have reached the end of the notes and the end of the show. Until next time.
That was pretty good. Good job, Dan.
Thank you. I feel like it kind of came on there towards the end, about half or 2/3 of the way through. I kind of got with it a little bit. So, all right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. If you're still listening, I appreciate you. If you're not still listening, I still appreciate you. If you have any questions or comments or anything, I mean, if you just want to chat and, talk about how much fun we have doing this stuff every day, let me know. I'd be happy to partake in any of that. And we'll see you next week.
See ya.